Today's headlines. ASEAN dialogue partners commit to improve cooperation in various areas of concern with ASEAN member nations. A labor group lauds ASEAN's commitment to sign a consensus protecting migrant workers. Oil companies implement fuel price hikes early morning, driving prices up to 50 pesos per liter. U.S. President Donald Trump vows to strengthen trade partnerships with ASEAN countries. Good day, I'm Pia Roses Morato. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. Today marks the closing of the 31st ASEAN Summit in the Philippines. ASEAN leaders and dialogue partners continue their meetings, culminating in the signing of a consensus protecting migrant workers. Here is our report.
The 31st ASEAN Summit continued today with more meetings between ASEAN member countries and dialogue partners. The ASEAN Plus 3, which includes China, Japan, and Korea, convened for their 20th commemorative summit. ASEAN also marked the 40th anniversary of its ties with Canada and the European Union. ASEAN Chairman President Rodrigo Duterte hosted lunch in honor of the members of the East Asia Summit, which consists of the ASEAN members, Australia, China, India, Japan, New Zealand, Russia, South Korea, and the United States. The East Asia Summit convened afterwards, followed by ASEAN's meeting with India. Today's highlight was the signing of the ASEAN Consensus on the Protection of the Rights of Migrant Workers, which aims to improve, protect, and promote the rights of migrant workers in ASEAN. The ASEAN Summit ended with the handover of the ASEAN Summit to Singapore and a press conference by President Duterte. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Benj Bondo.
President Rodrigo Duterte and U.S. President Donald Trump discussed the drug menace, terrorism, and trade issues in their bilateral meeting at the sidelines of the ASEAN Summit. Here is our report.
President Rodrigo Duterte and U.S. President Donald Trump had a lengthy and meaningful discussion about relevant issues in their 40-minute bilateral meeting. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said Duterte explained in length his policy on the war against drugs, which Trump agreed upon. Trump raised the issue on fair trade, particularly the hefty tariffs imposed on cars. The Philippine side expressed their hope that a free trade agreement can be concluded between both countries. Duterte and Trump also discussed the threat posed by the Islamic State or ISIS, with Duterte thanking the U.S. for its assistance during the Marawi rebellion. They emphasized the fight against terrorism and violent extremism as a common interest. Roque said the meeting between Duterte and Trump was warm and friendly and have been very candid in their dealings. He said Duterte remarked the need to keep ASEAN-US engagement close and to ensure that their strategic partnership delivers the best results for the people. Meanwhile, Trump commended Duterte for successfully chairing ASEAN and thanked the Philippine president for the incredible hospitality. He also congratulated ASEAN for its 50 years of promoting peace, prosperity, and stability in Southeast Asia and in the broader Indo-Pacific region. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Benj Bondo.
The European Union earmarked a total of 2 billion euros to support bilateral development cooperation with ASEAN member states. The Western Bloc announced this ahead of the 40th EU-ASEAN Summit held today. In a statement, European Council President Donald Tusk said EU countries want to widen and deepen a relationship with ASEAN that is based on mutual respect, common interests, and shared values. Tusk called upon the international community to take counsel together and cooperate on relevant issues such as trade, security, and climate change. This year's ASEAN-EU Summit marks the 40th anniversary of the establishment of the ASEAN-EU relations on November 14. Participating leaders aim to accelerate efforts towards a strategic partnership between the two blocs and further enhance political and security dialogue and cooperation.
President Rodrigo Duterte chairs the plenary of the 31st ASEAN Summit under the theme Partnering for Change, Engaging the World. This coincides with the 50th anniversary of ASEAN. Duterte accepted the chairmanship of ASEAN from Laos on September 8, 2016, at the end of the 30th ASEAN Summit. Last January 15, the Philippines launched its chairmanship of ASEAN in Davao. Commemorative coins and stamps were also launched. From then on, the country became the venue to a series of meetings with ASEAN officials on all levels. Each of them were hosted in Metro Manila and other major destinations, such as Davao, Palawan, and Boracay. The Philippines commemorated the 50th anniversary of ASEAN in August with a landmark lighting activity at the CCP complex, followed by cultural performances and an ASEAN-inspired parade. Other commemorative activities were a tribute to the 5 founding fathers of ASEAN, the ASEAN Youth Social Entrepreneurship Awards, recognition of the ASEAN Biodiversity Heroes, the ASEAN Business Awards, and the ASEAN for Humanity Award. To kick off the ASEAN Summit, President Duterte hosted a special gala celebration on the 50th anniversary of ASEAN on November 12. The President led the plenary as the summit opened on November 13. He will host a lunch on November 14 in honor of the East Asia Summit heads of state and guests of the chair. Later on, at the closing ceremony, the President will hand over the chairmanship of ASEAN to Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong of Singapore, the incoming chair for 2018.
President Rodrigo Duterte urged South Korean investors to increase trade and investment in the Philippines. President Duterte extended his invitation to South Korea to further invest in manufacturing, automotive, food, production, processing, agribusiness, electronics, and energy. In his bilateral meeting with Republic of Korea President Moon Jae-in, Duterte urged South Korean investors to further strengthen cooperation in the area of trade. He also expressed his gratitude to South Korea for its imports of Philippine products into South Korea, particularly personal care and other organic products, food and seafood, garments and chemicals, and other electronic parts. President Moon noted that South Korea and the Philippines have the most mutual people-to-people exchanges among ASEAN countries. He cited that there are about 1.5 million Korean tourists who visit the Philippines annually. He expressed hopes that more Filipinos will visit Korea when it hosts the Pyeongchang Winter Olympic Games in February next year. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe vowed to deepen cooperation with the Association of Southeast Asian Nations in various areas of interest and concern. Abe made the commitment during the 20th ASEAN-Japan Summit. The Prime Minister said Japan is willing to share its knowledge and experience with the ASEAN member states in various areas such as maritime security, defense, trade, infrastructure, development, combating terrorism, disaster risk reduction, and cultural exchanges. Among his commitments was the expediting of the Yen Loan Project and the early conclusion of Japan-ASEAN Technical Cooperation Agreement, which was agreed upon at the Japan-ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting in August. Abe raised the nuclear and missile issues of North Korea and asked that North Korea be pressured into changing its policy. Meanwhile, President Rodrigo Duterte expressed his congratulations to Prime Minister Abe on his re-election last month on behalf of other ASEAN leaders. He also affirmed Japan's role as one of ASEAN's strongest political dialogue partners. China and the ASEAN member nations agreed to start negotiations on a code of conduct on the South China Sea. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the code of conduct was among the outcomes during the ASEAN-China summit. ASEAN foreign ministers and their Chinese counterparts approved a framework for a code of conduct on the disputed waters back in August. Other outcomes in the meeting chaired by President Rodrigo Duterte included the joint statement of comprehensively strengthening effective anti-corruption cooperation, the ASEAN-China leaders' statement on the tourism cooperation, and the joint statement on further deepening the cooperation of infrastructure connectivity. A labor group lauded the scheduled signing of the ASEAN Consensus on the Protection and Promotion of Migrant Workers under the chairmanship of President Rodrigo Duterte. The Associated Labor Unions Trade Union Congress of the Philippines commended President Duterte for the welfare of millions of migrant workers. It said the consensus will pave the way to improved labor and occupational safety standards, as well as humane treatment of workers and their families across the ASEAN region. The consensus is a byproduct of the ASEAN Declaration on the Protection and Promotion of the Rights of Migrant Workers. It was introduced by the Philippines when it hosted the 12th ASEAN Summit meeting in Cebu on January 2007. The LUTUCP is looking towards the formulation of action plans in 2018 that would compel ASEAN member states to improve their labor and occupational safety and health standards for migrant workers. Still to come, oil companies implement fuel price hikes early morning, driving prices up to 50 pesos per liter. North Cotabato asks for additional government troops in the wake of intensified rebel activity. These and more when the PNA Newsroom continues.
ASEAN strives to foster close political, economic, and social-cultural ties with the rest of the world. This year's ASEAN Summit coincides with the 20th anniversary of the launch of the cooperation between ASEAN and China, Japan, and South Korea, collectively known as the ASEAN Plus 3. ASEAN Plus 3 was created in 1997 to improve existing ties with dialogue partners. This partnership was expanded further through the East Asia Summit in 2005, thus including Australia, New Zealand, and India, now collectively known as ASEAN CER or Closer Economic Relations. In 2011, the US and Russia became participants of the East Asia Summit. The United Nations is also a dialogue partner of ASEAN. The European Union and Arab League have signified their intent to become observers. Meanwhile, the United States and Canada became ASEAN's dialogue partners in 1977 and have cooperated since then. All participating nations hold related meetings during the ASEAN Summit. First is an internal organization meeting by ASEAN members, followed by a conference with foreign ministers of the ASEAN Regional Forum. Next is a meeting of the ASEAN Plus 3, and finally with ASEAN CER. ASEAN also holds key meetings with the US, Russia, and India. To date, ASEAN holds similar partnerships with Germany, Norway, Pakistan, Switzerland, and various international and regional organizations. Meanwhile, Papua New Guinea, an ASEAN observer, and Timor-Leste have signified to join the organization.
Oil companies announce a round of fuel pump price increases effective today, November 14. Shell, Pilipinas, Petron, Sea Oil, PTT Philippines, and Flying V announced that gasoline prices will go up by as much as 95 centavos per liter. This raises the cost of fuel to as much as 50 pesos per liter. Diesel prices also went up by 60 centavos and kerosene by 95 centavos. The price hikes were brought by movements in the international petroleum market. The Provincial Peace and Order Council, or PPOC, asked the Philippine Army for augmentation forces in North Cotabato amid rising atrocities committed by the New People's Army. In a resolution, PPOC Chair Governor Emilio Mendoza asked the Army's 1,002nd Infantry Brigade to deploy additional troops in towns of where the rebels have been active lately. Superintendent Leo Ajero, North Cotabato Police Intelligence Division Chief, reported that the rebels launched attacks on soft targets, referring to militiamen and civilians in North Cotabato's 2nd District. They reportedly executed 3 off-duty members on the Civilian Armed Forces Geographical Unit in the towns of Arakan, Magpet, and Antipas. Mendoza said the augmentation force will ensure civilians and non-combatants are safe from harassment by communist rebels. Colonel Roberto Angcan, 1002nd Infantry Brigade Commander, vowed to endorse the PPCO resolution to Major General Noel Clement, overall commander of the Army's 10th Infantry Division. A member of the Davao City Police Office was shot dead by two suspected members of the New People's Army in Barangay Valencia, Tugbok District, Davao City. The victim was identified as PO3 Wilfredo Garol, assigned at the intelligence section of the Tugbok Police Station. Police say the victim earlier transported his wife, a teacher, to school in Valencia on board his motorcycle. On his way back, the two suspects flagged him and asked for a free ride. But when they reached Purok 5 at Sitio Luman, Valencia, the gunman shot Garol several times, resulting to his death. Davao City Chief of Police Senior Superintendent Alexander Tagum suspected the gunmen were members of the NPA liquidation unit. He vowed that police will go after the suspects with the full might of the law. He also warned other cops to stand guard at all times. Police Regional Office 11 Chief Superintendent Manuel Guerrilan also condemned the killing. As of August, the military recorded death of 6 soldiers and a police in Davao region. A television actor died in a drowning incident in a resort in Davao Occidental. The victim was identified as Franco Miguel Hernandez Lumanlan, 26 years old, a member of the all-male group Hashtags. A police report over the weekend showed that the victim visited the hometown of fellow Hashtag member Tom Duramal in Don Marcelino when the accident occurred. Hernandez and his peers were island hopping on board a small motorized bangka when they encountered a strong current that caused their bangka to capsize. Hernandez was rushed to the hospital around 5:30 p.m. where he was declared dead on arrival. Fans and celebrities took to social media to express their condolences. Up next, U.S. President Donald Trump vows to strengthen trade partnerships with ASEAN countries. President Duterte sings for world leaders in the ASEAN Gala dinner. These and more when the PNA Newsroom returns.
The Philippines is one of the 5 founding members of ASEAN. Since its creation in 1967, the Philippines has taken an active role in transforming ASEAN into a major global player. In its previous chairmanships, the Philippines led in the adoption of the Manila Declaration, which aimed to foster closer political and economic cooperation among members and dialogue partners. It also witnessed the adoption of other key agreements such as the protection of migrant workers, counterterrorism, and the improvement of the ASEAN community. As the Philippines hosts the ASEAN Summit for the 3rd time, leaders will sign the ASEAN Consensus on the protection and promotion of the rights of migrant workers. This landmark document further seeks to strengthen social protection, access to justice, humane and fair treatment, and access to health services for the migrant workers of Southeast Asia. As chair of the ASEAN this year, the Philippines reiterates its policy to pursue a people-oriented and people-centered ASEAN. Peace and stability in the region, maritime security and cooperation, inclusive innovation and growth, ASEAN resiliency, and the realization of ASEAN as a model of regionalism and a global player.
A 7.3 magnitude earthquake hit the Iran-Iraq border area, killing at least 328 and injuring nearly 4,000 people. The quake's epicenter was located approximately 32 kilometers south of the city of Halabja in a remote mountainous region of eastern Iraq. The tremor was felt in several Iranian provinces bordering Iraq, including the capital, Tehran, and also in Turkey, Armenia, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates. Over 20 Iranian villages in Iran's Kermanshah province sustained damage and lost power and water. Traffic has normalized despite damage to road networks. More than 30 Iranian emergency teams have been dispatched to the quake-hit region and helicopters are delivering basic needs. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei urged all Iranian officials and institutions to aid those affected after the incident. Meanwhile, 3 mourning days has been announced in Kermanshah province, where over 4,000 are feared buried alive under rubble. Member states of ASEAN can expect a better trade partnership with the United States, as pronounced earlier by U.S. President Donald Trump. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said Trump introduced the topic on trade during the ASEAN-U.S. dialogue on Monday. Roque added that the U.S. President reiterated his stand on fair trade and brought up the issue of their high tariffs imposed on U.S. cars into the Philippines. Trump also advocated for the U.S. to practice reciprocity and treat countries as they treat the U.S. Roque said the U.S. showed that it still considers ASEAN as a very important trading region. President Duterte shared a light moment with world leaders during the ASEAN Gala dinner. Duterte sang the song Ikaw in a duet with legendary singer Pilita Corrales during the cultural show. He explained that he was egged on to sing by U.S. President Donald Trump. The U.S. President was later on heard praising Duterte's singing during the bilateral meeting with Trump and Duterte. In a Facebook post by Presidential Peace Advisor Jesus Dureza, Trump warmed up to the idea of having a duet with the Philippine president. Dureza noted the bilateral meeting showed good vibes between the two presidents. Here's another look at today's headlines. ASEAN dialogue partners commit to improve cooperation in various areas of concern with ASEAN member nations. A labor group lauds ASEAN's commitment to sign a consensus protecting migrant workers. Oil companies implement fuel price hikes early morning, driving prices up to 50 pesos per liter. U.S. President Donald Trump vows to strengthen trade partnerships with ASEAN countries. The holidays are coming soon. For more stories, please log on to www.pna.gov.ph or visit the PNA page on Facebook and Twitter. And that's your daily dose of the hottest news and the latest information that you need to know from the PNA Newsroom. I'm Pia Roses Morato. Good day.